Ooh, Joe dropped a question in here, Mark. We can start with this one. This is a great place to start. What's
Yeah.
the best way to get my speaking proposal approved? I've spoken at a few conferences already, but just curious, what's the best way to get it approved?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, this whole you know, 25, 30 minutes we'll be together. We're going to hit on all those things to be thinking about. And, Joe, I think one of the things too is just to be conscious that not every organization approaches it the same way. And therefore it's the nuance is important. And, we provide a lot of resources, and we always advise that you look at those on the CFP main page. There's links to examples and non-examples. A Word document is available too, which you can leverage to kind of flesh out what you want as a proposal before you actually enter it into the system. We highly recommend that in case there's a glitch in the system. But we have a ton. We've got, one of the things that Sierra and I talked about before this, to make it fun, we were going to come up with our top 5 each things you can do to improve your submission getting accepted. And we'll get started with just that whole list, Joe, in like 2 minutes time. So I don't want anybody to miss that.
Yeah, we're playing a little bit of Mount Rushmore. I don't know if you guys listen to, I want to say it's on the highway on my Sirius XM radio, but they'll Mount Rushmore things like your favorite food or your current favorite song or past favorite song or things like that. So we're Mount Rushmoring our tips and tricks for CFPs.
Yes.
I just made it a verb, Mark. We're going to put that in the dictionary. Or Mount Rushmoring it.
It was an Urban Dictionary entry. Try that one.
There we go. Probably easier to get accepted, right?
Yes. Yeah, right. Yeah, and by the way, when we give our top 5 each, they're not in order. Like they're, I don't want to say that we hit number 1. It's like, this is the big one. You nail this one and you got on the program. It's not how it works. And, something else I'll share at the beginning in just one more minute to kind of kick things off. Just give everybody, I'll do I'll just do a high level overview of the process. And then we can kind of launch into that so people understand what we do during this 9-month gestation period of creating a conference. I'm going to step aside and shut my door so I don't get too many disturbances. Hold on.
So that the dogs don't come running in or anything like that. Gotta love it. Okay, I see a hand raised in here. Bob, if you want to go ahead and drop in a chat or a Q&A if you've got a question for us. Happy you're here. Reminds me of a TikTok from Mount Rushmore. Yeah, it's Faces on Rocks. Yes. Yeah.
Never impressed, are they? Never impressed.
Well, it's like, oh, nope. The movie, and they get to the Grand Canyon, the vacation.
Yes.
And they get to the Grand Canyon, and they're like,
oh, yeah.
Okay. And that's
yeah, that was
that's it.
We took my kids to California. I'm in Syracuse, New York, everybody. We took our kids to California for a little getaway, and we went to Muir Woods, and it was just big trees. That's all. That's what my kids saw, big trees. All right, it is top of the hour for us, 1:00 Eastern time in Syracuse. I think it's 12 over there in Des Moines. Yep. So I'm Mark Fritz. I'm the director of event programming at the Guild, and I have a team with me, and that's Pam Hogel, and joining me right here is Sierra Macron. And if Sierra, would you kind of share a little bit about who you are, what you do for the Guild?
Absolutely. I am a part of Mark's team. I'm the program manager, and I focus a lot on learning solutions. So today we're going to be talking all about our learning solutions, CFP, best ways to do your proposals, and all the fun facts, all of our tips and tricks. But I work primarily with learning solutions, getting into the nitty-gritty details of prepping for DevLearn and DemoFest and all of that. But I focus a lot on learning solutions. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk through how we can get you at our Learning Solutions Conference.
Yeah, perfect. So just so everybody understands that, learning solutions, the CFP is open now. So getting your submission in this time period is exactly when to do it. It is not a heavy process to put in there, but we want to make sure you have the right ideas, the right direction to increase your opportunity to get on the program and speak at our events. One of the things we're really, really conscious of is trying to get new voices, new faces at our events, new ideas. We strive, as you may not know this, upwards of 25% new speakers at every one of our events. So if you've never spoken before, we're looking for you because we want to bring you forward and the work that you're doing. So I said at the beginning, It's going to give you all a high-level process, high-level look at our process. It's a 9-month period to create learning solutions, or DevLearn, or the learning show, and it really does start with the CFP. And we capture, obviously, upwards of anywhere from 400 to 900 submissions sometimes at our events. And keep that in mind. That's a big one, because what happens is when you get anywhere from 400 to 900 submissions and you literally have anywhere from 120 to 140 speaking slots, one of the very biggest reasons that you may not make it on the program is just simply real estate, that we have to make really tough choices. That doesn't mean you have a bad proposal. It just means we probably had a lot of proposals in that space and had to make some very tough decisions. And often what we find is we'll take somebody who wasn't initially added to the program and add them to an alternates list. So when you get an email from us that says you didn't make the program at this time, the key word is at this time, means we liked your submission. And if there's an opportunity, if the program expands in any way, or we have anybody, and it happens all the time, a cancellation, then we'll reach out to you if it fits that particular track, that particular need for the program. So a 9-month period, it starts with the CFP, and then we walk through a series of reviews. The entire team reviews every single proposal that comes in. We don't divvy them out. We all get into individual reviews of it, and then we gather together and we have the debates, and then we start to finalize that and build the actual program. And then from that point on, we build the elements around the conference itself. Demo Fest will be one of the events that takes place that any speaker who's in attendance should think about showcasing their work at Demo Fest. So don't forget about that. And all the other features and functions that happen in the conference, like Morning Buzz happens. We help and support our expo sessions that take place. We have other evening and activities that happen during the course of the day. So all this is happening over a period of 9 months as we monitor and manage and build the program. And then we get to obviously execute that program. We work with you speakers when you're accepted on the program, get your materials to us, get your headshots to us, get your bios to us, get you all the materials you need to build a successful presentation, be it a BYOD presentation, which is our hands-on sessions that we have. Every block has them. We're going to have upwards of 1 or 2 per block. And then, of course, our concurrent sessions that take place. So learning solutions, I believe, Sierra, correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at 10 blocks of sessions for learning solutions, right? So in that, and anywhere from, I think, 12 to 13 sessions will be happening at a time during the event. So that leads us to this point, what you all came for, is get the tips and tricks and ask your questions. I think what we'll try to do is kind of walk through our top 5 in no particular order of some of the things to be considering when you're developing a proposal, so that it increases your opportunity to get accepted. Please note, though, you can meet all of these and still, because of the volume of sessions we get, it still might be a very difficult choice. But hopefully these tips will help you out. So Sierra, I'm going to turn it over to you for your first tip to share with people about the proposal process and what they can do.
All right, my first one out of the gate is pretty simple. Answer the questions. The CFP is basically a list of questions where you're describing your session to us. We take pride in how we've built the CFP. We're constantly revising it to make sure it's getting at what we need. So we ask those questions for a reason. So starting it simple, answer the questions in the CFP, answer them, all of them. Don't miss one. Answer the question. That feels like kind of a silly tip, but there's a lot of questions in there. And again, we take our time to craft those questions. So answer the questions. That's my first tip.
Yep. And just to kind of dovetail on that a little bit, I think it's important to note that yes, all the details that are in there really go into, we read the proposal that you submit, we read your bio to see how you connect to that, right? So we're looking at all that information, the objectives you list out, so we have to paint the picture of what that session is going to look like. If there's holes in there, then that makes it much more difficult, because we're not going to guess. And like I said, 400 to 900 proposals, we're likely not reaching out to ask you to fill in any information. We don't have that kind of time in the process. Wish we did, but we don't. So I'm gonna tag on to Sierra's number 1 there. It wasn't her number 1, but it's just one of her first ones. Mine is just similar to that. There are 2 main sections in the proposal, and those 2 sections are the challenge that is faced by individuals or the industry, or a problem that people face, and then how your session is going to solve that problem, that challenge that people are facing. So it'd be very, very clear to identify a challenge or problem that a lot of people face. Don't go too niche into an area where you might look and say, but somebody would have to be a highly technical person who works with this one tool. We don't want to have a session with 2 people in it, to the event. So be thinking a bit about that challenge a little more carefully and targeting much who comes to our events, and nail that piece down. And then the second part of that is, of course, to how are you going to, in your session, provide people information to help them overcome that challenge. So paint that picture for us. So I think those 2 pieces are really, really big, and they form for us what you will actually see online. So once you submit that, if you're accepted, we'll make slight modifications possibly to edit things down or up or whatever it might be. But in the end, those are the big rocks that appear online that kind of promote your session. So hopefully that's a helpful tip. Sarah, you got another one?
I do. And this one actually it's like we planned this or something, Mark.
It's like we had a conversation.
Weird. But so you've answered the questions in the 2 big chunks that we will be using to put online. With that, keep them clear and concise. Like Mark said, we could get upwards of 900 of them, and we individually read all of them. So the more direct and clear you can be in answering the questions, in your challenge, in your solution, the more clear and concise you can be, the easier it is for us to build that vision of what the session's going to look like. And for me, we read them, in chunks. So I'm not going to sit down and read all 900 in one day.
Right.
But when you're reading 10 at a time or whatever, it is nice to be able to call out that very clear, concise. I can picture it in my head what that proposal looked like. So answer the questions nicely, concise, but on the same hand, don't leave holes in those questions. So give us as much as we need to understand what's going on, but be very clear and concise in your proposal. I think, and now that I'm reading through all these, I'm like, these are kind of duh, Sierra, but I think they make a huge difference when we're reading these proposals.
Yeah. And again, I'm just going to add a little bit of that too. When when Sierra mentions being clear and concise, we like creativity in a proposal. We like to like your personality to come out. But we've seen proposals in the past that get really, I guess the word would be cute, right? They play with a narrative, and it becomes kind of just a fun, and you get through it and you're like, that rhymed a little, and they sprinkled in like a kind of a theme or a plot in there, and there's a lot of work in there, and I still walk away from the proposal going, but what's going to happen in this session?
What are we doing? Exactly. And I love those. I think
they're fun.
I don't think it's ever been said that I'm not an animated person. So I love when we're telling a story or there's a joke or rhyme is fun. I also love alliterations, but none of that matters if we get to the end of it and we're just kind of looking around like, that was cute and I had a great time reading it, but what are we doing?
Yeah. What's going to happen in that session?
Yeah.
What are people going to take away? So
yeah.
All right, so my next one, and this is a big one for me because I'm a real sucker for a case study, and it always comes up. I love case studies. I love to know what happens in an organization and how they solve a particular problem. But I would say I'd frame this one around saying bridge the gap. So if you are somebody who is presenting from an academic setting, or possibly you have a case study, and maybe your case study is very contextual to like a hospital, like we see that a lot too, and it's great. The problem that can arise though is the folks who submit those and don't get accepted is because they're speaking to that context only. They're speaking to the people who would be in that environment. For example, I've seen sessions before submitted where it was a program designed to solve something along the lines of a learning intervention for nurses. And it was really about nurses. And it was really getting into the flow of nurses. And I'm going, they need to bridge the gap, because how many hospitals, hospital administrators, or nurses, for that matter, or nurse educators are going to be at the event? It's a broad swath of people who are going to be interested in your content. You need to think about meeting a larger need and tie what you're writing about in your proposal to other potential context uses, is what I would say. Academic, this happens a lot too. You know, it's a college setting, or speaking to students and professors or something along those lines. And I can see it. I can see it in there that this would transfer to a corporate setting, which is a larger part of our audience. But if you don't say it, I can't guess that you're actually going to do that in the session. So you really got to connect those dots for people. Nothing wrong with that, but be thinking about who is going to be in that audience. And it's much broader than you think.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. And I can't count the times we've gotten these incredible case studies that shows a really awesome solution that as we're talking about it, our crew is going, oh, could you imagine if you did this at this setting, or what it would look like if you applied it in this space? But since the connection's not made in the proposal, it's difficult for us to put it on the program, even though we're sitting there very excited about all of the ways that it could be applied to a broader setting. Making that connection is so crucial in us being able to find its space on the program.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. What else you got?
I've got another very simple one, but give me some takeaways. What am I going to be learning? I'd say more often than not, our attendees will look at the title and they'll look at the takeaways, and then they miss the meat of that, where you actually learn what you're going to be doing. But as we're looking through our proposals, if you have defined takeaways, what are you learning? What am I going to be able to apply? Am I going to have a new skill? Whatever it is, action words for takeaways, clear takeaways that we can all say, okay, this is a value add on our program because the attendee is going to be able to leave that session knowing this, understanding this, having a new tool that they're taking away. So those takeaways are a huge piece that we often will call back to say, but remember, this takeaway is so clear. So that's another big one. And again, they're pretty simple, but I think it's important to really hammer down on those takeaways because they're huge. That's all we've got is we're building our picture of what the session looks like. We're imagining the space. It's great. That story's great, but what am I actually learning? Let's get down to business, to quote Mulan. What are we learning? And those takeaways are huge.
Yep. And that section is usually, a lot of the details, a bulleted list, 3 to 5
Yep.
major objectives of the session, and what people will learn to be able to do is critical. I often recommend that people think about that section first and writing out, just like many times instructional designers will do, is begin with the end in mind. Here's the objectives, here's the outcomes we want. Begin there and then kind of build your narrative backwards. So it's a different approach to what you might want to do in the linear fashion when you see it.
And then your title will come.
The title comes from that.
It's like the title's fun and that's your attention grabber, but if you've got a great title and I have no idea what your takeaways are, probably not going to work. So I love that idea of listing your takeaways and allowing the title to come naturally.
That's right. So while we're doing this, we have a couple more each to go through in the next 15 minutes. But by all means, if you want to drop something in the chat, we'll weave in your question and give you an answer as best we can. You can use the chat feature for that. So here goes my next big one. Big point to bring up is be research knowledgeable, be evidence informed. We have a savvy audience, everybody. There's a lot of information out there that is just a great gut feeling. It's very marketing push. I'm talking about things like learning styles. Maybe I'm talking about generational differences or myths around millennials or what these people need, attention span of goldfish, and those type of things. As soon as we see those in a session, even if the rest of the session sounds pretty solid, we are left with a little bit of a red flag. And we're doing this as a favor because one of the things is, like I said, our audience is very savvy. They're looking for the best information out there, the best ways to improve their practices. They stay informed. If you lead with that type of content, if that's behind it, and it's not something that's research-based or evidence-informed, and you plan to talk about it, you'll take some hits, in terms of the evaluation. So be very, very careful and make sure that what you're presenting has good backing behind it. I would definitely recommend that if you're going to go in those directions, be sure that you have research behind it.
All right, Mark, before I share my next tip, and I saved my favorite 2 tips for last, so we're getting to the good stuff. But before we get there, we do have a question from Casey, and Casey is wondering about the differences between our conferences. So are we, and that's what it's like working in a school all the time. So Casey is wondering about the differences between DevLearn, learning, and learning solutions. And when we're writing proposals, we had mentioned previously how it's important to write for the different audiences. What's the difference in the audience?
Sure. I think one of the things is that, we have the 3 major events. We theme these events too. Keep in mind that DevLearn, for example, is, we're talking about what's coming next, right? So it has a little bit of a push into the future. Obviously, there is a lot of practical information that's shared there, but it has always been the conference that's been on the bleeding or leading edge. And so we see a lot more in the technical space of what's emerging, what's coming next in there. But obviously, we also make sure that anybody who's entering the learning profession, for example, has opportunity there too. Learning solutions, we like to look at learning solutions like, hey, I'm going to learn this, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and I'm going to apply it on Monday. So the idea behind learning solutions definitely has that much more of a kind of a practical as the main point. Not that we don't delve into some of the future and some of the emerging technologies and emerging approaches there as well, but it definitely has much more around immediacy of what you learn and then being able to put that into practice, right? Sharing what works is the theme for learning solutions. It's always been that piece to it, and the what works part, right? So putting that stuff into practice. And then the learning show is definitely about learning leadership and growing learning leadership in terms of hierarchical leadership, moving up in terms of what you do in an organization, but it's also about influential leadership in an organization, how to move ideas forward. So there's a lot more management and strategy type sessions around particular technologies or approaches. And that's probably the best way I can probably sum up those three events.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that while they all have their identifying characteristics, we do have tech stuff at Learning Solutions. We do have management stuff at DevLearn. We provide some crossover, but I think that understanding the purpose of the conference is going to be a lot more useful in preparing your proposal. Just knowing why people come to that conference is so important, as opposed to who you're writing for. And again, we're still going to have our tech stuff at Learning Solutions because there are practical applications of learning technologies. And if all DevLearn was thinking about the future, we wouldn't know where to go next. So there are those practical application focused sessions at DevLearn. And learning, you can't do all of that without practical application and technology. So it is interwoven, but it is nice to know that the audience or the goal of each conference is very distinct.
Very good.
Okay, I think it's my turn for a tip.
You're up. Next one.
Okay. All right, this is number 2 on my list. And this is where I think we start to get those differentiators, but using your voice. We had talked about being clear and concise in answering the question. Everyone can do that. But using your voice to find that balance of identifying a concept or a theory in L&D and applying it or sharing a story. Literally anyone can do that. But when we can hear how you're going to present in the room, the energy that you're going to bring, your different experience in a given world or in a different piece of L&D, that gets me really excited. And Mark said, with 900 things, if we've got 500 that are about working with SMEs, we don't have 500 sessions that we can do about working with SMEs. We have to start picking, and when we can really hear you and hear your story and hear your take on a specific way that differentiates you from some of the other things, that's super helpful in us remembering it. It comes down to that is, do you remember what that was like? Can you picture it? Can you feel yourself in that room, learning all of the takeaways, being in that space, and creating together? So use your voice as much as we're getting our research, as much as we're being practical, as much as we're giving the takeaways. Don't lose who you are, because it's our speakers who make our conferences so unique and fun, and engaging. So don't lose yourself. Give us your voice and all of these other things.
There's another question in the Q&A, and this one from Joe. Joe asked, can somebody submit multiple proposals? The answer is absolutely 100% yes. Yes, you can. One of the things we do definitely see over time, though, is what I joke sometimes is saying, uh-oh, somebody's loaded the rifle with buckshot. What happens often is some of those first 2, 3 that might come out from somebody are pretty strong, and then we start to see redundancy, or the proposals get a little bit weaker. So I can't dictate and say to you, no, you can't submit 10 proposals. Of course you can, but it be in your best interest to think about kind of unique session descriptions and being able to support the level of detail we need in each of those. So I would just say I've seen the trends, and the trends show that sometimes when somebody's trying to get on the program and they're sending 4, 5, 6 different submissions, and there's overlap, they read pretty much the same, but with a slight change to the title or something like that. It does scream a little bit like, I just want to be on the program, versus I have a story to tell and something to share with people and bring it forward. So
well, and we can tell when it's a copy paste from another proposal as well. We asked some pretty unique questions, different questions that I think are often found on other proposals. So if you're just taking one from a conference that you've submitted before and copy and paste, we can tell. So just make sure that you're being mindful of tailoring to the audience, tailoring to the questions that we ask, because those are all things that we look for, especially when you're submitting multiples.
That's right. And Sierra did answer in there, and I missed that. She raised a really good point. We definitely strive on the program for one session, one speaker, each event. Now, you might find down the road that, yes, we all of a sudden you see a speaker speaking twice. They might be on a panel and they might have a concurrent session. That's one thing that happens. Also, they might have something they submitted before and it's late in the program and there was a cancellation. And we say, this is a good value for the attendees. And so we'll kind of alter that. It's never a hard and fast rule, but we definitely strive for one each because we want to create balance. We want definitely a community environment and allow as many voices as we can to be present at the events. All right, let's see here. I think I'm up next, aren't I? Yeah, one of the things I would share to you is details. We will make edits, we'll make changes in the proposals just to make sure it fits our format, but you need to explain things. One of the things we see possibly come up that does definitely come up is like somebody in the proposal might share, I'm going to share with you my 5 key tips for X, Y, and Z. And nowhere in the rest of the proposal do they tell us anything about what those tips are. Now you might say to yourself, well, that sounds kind of compelling, or it's a cliffhanger. No, we are acting as the proxy, if you will, for the attendees. And so we look at those like an attendee will look at and go, but what am I really going to learn here? So you need to flesh that out for us. If you're going to tell us that it's got this many of this, or we're going to talk about this, go into detail, explain a little bit about it so we can see what the value is there for the attendees as they come. So watch out for those vague buzzwords in there, right? Make sure you're providing those details. Don't get too cute with like cliffhangers. You really need to spell out what it is you're going to be sharing and how you're going to share it in the session that's going to move somebody forward.
Those are some of my favorite moments with Mark, because he has this, and I want to call it a tagline. Mark's catchphrase, whatever you want to call it, when we're reviewing these, is he says, show me the diamonds, show me the diamonds, show me the diamonms.
Show me the diamonds.
Because he just wants to see what we're doing, and it makes me giggle, but it is so true. Those I'll tell you my 5 tips, and then we're sitting there like, okay, that's great and exciting if you're watching a movie, but we're trying to figure out if I'm going to attend the session. That's right. Show me the diamonds. Show me the diamonds. I was honestly shocked that you didn't say that when you're describing this, because he says it all the time.
And there it is.
But it's true. It's true.
All right. Okay. What do you got here? You got one more to go?
This is my last one, and it's my favorite one. It really, truly is. One of my favorite parts of our job is the community that we have with the Guild. So please reach out. Please reach out. We are a community-based network. This program is built together, lifting up everyone. So reach out, contact us, talk to us about the general direction you're going in, what resources you might be doing. We're here to help you grow. We're here to build the best program that we can. And sometimes that means hanging out and chatting for a little bit. We can find time to respond via email. If we're able to, we can connect in person. I've already talked to a couple of folks who just wanted some feedback. They're first-time speakers or first-time submitters. Submitters? Sure. And we're just wondering, what we're looking for, similar to this, but we get to do it on a smaller scale, one-on-one, which I think it's just great. And it helps us, especially for new speakers. It's easier for us to paint the picture of what you're going to be presenting on when we can get some time with you. So that's what we're here for. We are here to help the community. We are here to build the best program that we can, and we're here to help. And I love doing that. It's my favorite part of the job.
And I would just caution people out there. It's like, yeah, throw us an idea, but well before the CFP process is not
in a week and a half before closing.
Yeah, and the other thing too is I just like, again, that can be a high level. I'm thinking about talking about doing this in a session and sharing these ideas. Boom, that's great. I'll give you feedback. Sarah will give you feedback on the direction you might want to take. What we can't do, however, is take an entire proposal that's in the Word doc and then give you insight and feedback on that. That is not the direction we want to go. So if you have a snapshot, something you want to share with us, we're happy to provide that. The other thing, keep in mind, and Sarah hinted to this, is, and I started the show like that. We have a show.
We have our own talk show now, Mark. I love it. Can you get a theme song and everything?
Yeah, we can work on that. It's got to be by the Foo Fighters, or else I'm just really
okay.
Ask for more in my contract. So the point is we have a lot of resources on the front end. So when you hit the pages with list on our events, you'll see some of those resources. And one of the things I love is we've provided in the past, and it's still there, is kind of like, here's an example and a non-example that breaks it down to why this is strong and why this is weak. You use those resources. Take a look at those and make sure that you're adhering to what we're recommending in that process. So,
yeah.
All right.
Mark, before you go, we've got a question in the chat.
Yep.
Joe, the best way to contact us is the program's account email. That is listed on all of our CFPs. It's listed everywhere. And it's just programs at the Learning Guild. But that's the best way to get a hold of us. All of our program team members are in there, so they'll direct you to the best person to contact to help you get support there. But that program's email account, thank you for dropping that in the chat, Mark. That is the best, most efficient way to get a hold of us. And then based on your show, based on your questions, we might direct you to myself, Mark, Pam. Depending on where you're going, one of us will reach out and figure out next steps.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for reminding me of that. That is the account we all tap into and make sure that nothing gets, dropped through the cracks. All right, so we got about 2 minutes left in our time together. Here's my number one. And it's kind of what anybody who's in the training and development field should always be thinking about is know the audience. And we list out exactly who are the types of people who come to our events. And what I'll add to that is, as you're crafting your proposal, I want you to close your eyes and visualize who are the people you're going to want in that room and speak to them. Is this a proposal that's for management level? Is this a proposal for somebody who is an instructional designer, an e-learning developer, a graphic designer? You need to think and write to those specific people in your room. Otherwise, we end up with a proposal where Sierra and I or Pam and David are looking at it going, is this for managers? Or is this a proposal that's for, and that's a problem because people will select based on, is this speaking to me, right? So is this session speaking to me? Is it solving my particular problem? If you have more than one priority, they say, you have no priority. So focus in, like that one, Sarah? Yeah, I live by that.
That was nice. I like that. I'm gonna put that in my back pocket.
Thank you. T-shirts.
That's good. Yes.
They're in the mail, Sarah. So anyways, that's a big one for me. Know the audience and speak to the audience that you want in the room. We list those on the website. These are the folks who are coming, but really try to visualize that. Who are the people I want to help and design for that.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And those are all part of those resources that you mentioned, Mark, that are on the website, on the CFE page. They have the questions, they have the target audience. It's also super helpful to go and look back at previous years' websites to get a feel for the energy, the type of people that are going to be there. I think that's always been beneficial to me, just to see who's going to be there. I think it's nice, but that explicit description of our target audience for each conference is listed on the website, and that's super helpful. Super helpful. Great place to start.
So once again, that email is programs@learningguild.com. If you leave this time with us today and you say, oh, I had a question, fire it off there. Just, say, hey, I was in the session, I forgot to ask this. Happy to answer those particular questions. Send us your initial ideas at a high level. We will happily give you feedback on those. And, of course, we wish you the best. We want you on the program. We want new voices. We want new solutions and ideas to share. So we are here to help you. So we're a resource for the community. And that's really it. It's 1:30 Eastern time. Got to cut loose.
Perfect timing.
Yep.
Look at that.
Thank you so much. And everybody, we look forward to seeing you at Learning Solutions.
Thank you all.